call on the ice stands. We gotta go!
Okay, fellas, we are set to go.
Let's roll, boys! Come on, let's get going!
We are kicking.
Here we go! Both guys, 5 minutes each for fighting! Watch the blue! Play the puck! We're not doing this!
Hey! After further review, it's the Scouting the Refs podcast.
Yeah, baby!
Here's your hosts, Todd Lewis and Josh Smith.
Okay, gentlemen, play ball! Let's go!
All right, guys, let's drop the puck.
We're well into the new year. All the resolutions are out the window. It's mayhem. It's craziness. We've had an assortment of situations, we'll call them, out on the ice, I would say, this past week.
Yeah, some situations that were good, some milestones, some situations that were a little bit less positive for all parties involved, and some situations that required the situation room to get involved.
Very good. It's the Scouting the Refs podcast. Follow Josh at Scouting the Refs on any social media platform. You pick the platform, he's on it at Scouting the Refs. You'll get me at Todd Lewis Sports on many of these same platforms. On this week's episode, milestone nights, paying the price, I'll take that call, kick or no kick, and stuck in the box. Let's begin with some good news, congratulatory messages. It goes to Eric Furlatt and Chris Rooney, both longtime National Hockey League referees. Both officiated their 1,500th NHL game this past week. Congratulations, guys.
Yeah, huge milestone for both those guys. So you're looking at top 10 all-time NHL regular season games for these guys, or getting close to it there. Eric Furlatt worked his game with Freddie Lecuyer, Johnny Murray, Ryan Daisy. Nice to see them, because you do get to pick your crew for these milestone games. Murray and Furlatt were also at Lecuyer's 1,000-game milestone this past spring. So you see those guys get invited back, and they get to share the ice together. Nice to see that for Furlatt. Also got the game puck. Nick Suzuki hands it to him after the game. Nice gesture there from the Habs fans in attendance. Of course, Furlatt from Quebec. And then in the States, we had Chris Rooney, South Boston native, honored 1,500 games at Bruins Oilers. He's out there with Wes McCauley, Steve Barton, Brad Kovacek, the first American official to hit the 1,500 game mark. So congratulations to Chris Rooney. Picked his crew as well. Nice to be out there, sharing the ice for those kinds of special moments with guys that you worked with, guys that impacted your career, guys that influenced you or helped out along the way. So great for everybody involved. Nice to see two longtime officials hit those milestones.
I know that players are recognized for their 1,000th game, and I suspect there's some sort of recognition for 1,500 as well, although very few get that high. Is there like a silver whistle or something presented to referees and linespersons that hit this mark?
It varies. We've seen some different things out there. We've seen the silver stick. We've seen sticks, and teams can present whatever they want to. Sometimes we've seen jerseys with the official's number or with 1,000 on it or 1,500, depending on the milestone. So we've seen the teams honor officials in different ways. And as far as the NHL's official answer, I don't think we've seen a consistent response to it. I know I recall seeing some silver sticks along the way, but for a guy who's not playing, I don't know if a stick is as appropriate as maybe a whistle.
You mentioned maybe 2 high sticks would be the way to signify this. I think that might be something that we can get into for the officials. And
I love it.
Response, I love, is the phrase you used as well.
I like that one.
Yeah. So, all right, let's get into the stranger, maybe the strangest situation I have ever seen. Did not occur in the National Hockey League. It was Akbars Kazan's forward, Nikita Dinanak's phone, who ended up on the ice falling out of his equipment as he pursued a player from Avant-Garsk and Ohm. So the referee, Victor Buren, picked it up and went by the bench and say, anybody own this? Anybody own this? And finally, it was Nikita who owned up to it and had the look of shame with his head down. Do you believe this?
I loved it. I love that his teammate, first of all, was like, oh, no, that's not us. It's the idiots on the other bench. And then, of course, they find out it's the guy sitting next to him who dropped his phone. So no penalty, no foul, although the opposing coach, Guy Boucher, over there arguing for a penalty for illegal equipment on the ice. Didn't work, but hey, I can see where he's coming from.
I don't know. There's probably going to be a bulletin about players having cell phones out on the ice now as we go forward. But just a fun thing, if it popped up. Not so fun, the big fines that were handed out this past week to Toronto Maple Leaf forward Max Domi, $5,000, big elbow on Philly forward Garnet Hathaway. Department of Player Safety says, yeah, that's a penalty, and it was a 2-minute penalty, and it was also a $5,000 penalty, and he got his money's worth.
He absolutely did. He got all of that with the elbow coming in there, unnecessarily high elbow. So it's an easy call. 2 minutes, I guess I can live with. This isn't quite a major penalty for elbowing, but definitely worth a penalty, definitely worth a fine. Probably not rising to the level of suspension here, but still an ugly play. And yes, I'm sure he's happy to cash the check for that one, because he did get his money's worth. Full on flying elbow right in the gut.
That's and that's unacceptable. So Ottawa's Nick Cousins also got fined slightly less. It was a little under $2,100 for elbowing Buffalo Sabres Jacob Bryson this past week. Again, 2-minute minor, and player safety says pay up, the maximum allowable under the CBA.
Yeah, and Cousins doesn't make enough money to get fined more, so we can't damage his paycheck too much here. Not as ugly, I don't think, to me as Domi's, but certainly still an offense, still worth the minor penalty. No injury on the play. I mean, that's the one thing that you want to hope, is that when you have these types of situations, you want to penalize the intent, and you want to make sure that these guys are getting it, which is why we see the fines here. But no injury, not to the level of severity that would necessarily necessitate a suspension for it, but just ugly, nasty plays.
Okay, let's talk about another ugly, nasty play, and that happened in the Anaheim and Calgary game. It was Anaheim Ducks defenseman Drew Helleson who was assessed a 5-minute major for kneeing Calgary Flames forward Connor Zary. It's a nasty knee, and Zary is out. They did some initial testing. He does not have a break in that area, but they're still trying to determine the extent of the injury because of swelling. They've got to wait a little while. But yeah, this was we saw a rash of them last week, and we've got another one this week.
You would think that with all the kneeing going on and all the high-profile fine suspensions, major penalties, match penalties, ejections, things like that, guys would be a little more careful with their knee. And maybe, to be fair here, Todd, maybe he was, because when I look at this hit, it doesn't line up with what we saw last week when it comes to those kneeing ejections. We've got a guy who's going in for a hit. He's looking to make a legal body check on the play, comes across the ice, and he's missing. If you look at his angle of attack, which he doesn't change, he kind of stays the same trajectory, the same body position, going for a check, and he misses. It's a bad hit attempt by Drew Helleson. But he's going for a shoulder-on-shoulder check. He's going to hit into the body. He's not leading with his knee. He's leading with the shoulder. So to me, this was basically a legal hit attempt gone wrong, and not what looks like intentional kneeing. Now, the kneeing penalty does call for folks to be leading with their knee or extending their knee to make contact. I don't think he did either in this case. I don't think he extended his knee. You do have knee-on-knee contact, but I don't think that was his intent. And I think he was... Basically, it was just a poor hit attempt that had an unfortunate result. I get the call in the game. I get the major penalty. I look at when the officials are managing the game there and looking at what's happening on the ice. They did have a chance to review it. They look at the knee-on-knee contact and they call the major penalty. But I think when player safety had a chance to look at it further, and you watch it real time, watch it in slow motion, yes, there's knee-on-knee contact, but it really looks like he's going for a legal body check, shoulder on shoulder, misses, and the knee injury that results was really unfortunate. But this is one of those tough plays where do you look at the outcome, or do you try to look at the intent when you're making those decisions from a player safety standpoint?
That's a fair point, and it's tough to gauge intent. It's this situation almost reminds me a little bit of a player that you need to be in control of your stick. Doesn't matter if the result of the play, yes, is a serious knee-on-knee collision, but it's not a malicious, deliberate attempt.
No, and look, I don't want to blame Zary for anything with the contact here, but you see the guy coming in towards you, and the way he's cutting, you almost leave yourself open to some plays like this. Now, that certainly doesn't make him responsible in any way, but we look at similar rules like the illegal head contact rule in the National Hockey League. And I think your example is a good one there, Todd, but we can also look at sometimes head contact is avoidable. Sometimes head contact is not avoidable. And those are the differences, because we can't gauge intent, or we try to, was it avoidable? Did the player change his body position and contribute to the hit? Things like that. I feel this is almost akin to that situation where you don't have intentional knee-on-knee contact. You don't have kneeing with the intent of sticking his leg out because he missed, or even pushing his knee forward because he's going to otherwise miss on body contact. I think it's just a poor hit with an unfortunate circumstance. So I think that's where it gets a little blurry, and we see it. It's frustrating now when it comes to illegal checks to the head, of figuring out where that line is on why is this a suspension and why was this only a penalty, or why was there no call. I think those types of discussions are the same thing we see on this Zary hit.
Okay, I want to talk about another play that involves the Chicago Blackhawks and their young superstar, Connor Bedard. We thought there was a goal scored, and it was talked about and it was looked at, and it was decided that there was not a goal scored because the puck was kicked into the net. And this, of course, will lead us into the discussion of distinct kicking motion and what qualifies and what doesn't qualify. This puck did not go directly from the blade into the net, which I think is a reasonable point to make note of as well. So let's walk through it. And I'm personally puzzled as to why this did not count as a goal.
Like you mentioned, Todd, we're looking for a distinct kicking motion on this play. You have Bedard crashing the net. He's going in there, and the puck is allowed to deflect off of his skate and into the net. He is allowed to position his skate to create a deflection that would put it in the net, and he's allowed to turn, angle, or otherwise move his skate to create that deflection. What he can't do is propel the puck into the net. So it's easy when you look at the obvious cases, right? You turn your skate, fine, that's going to be a good goal every time. You wind up, kick your skate and follow through, taking it off the ice. That's going to be no goal every time. But then you have all the spots in between where it's not obvious what's going on, or the motion is a little bit different. Is this part of your skating stride? Are you stopping? I mean, he's headed straight towards the goalie, so he's going to do something with his skates. Otherwise, he's going to crash the goalie and get an interference penalty, even if it's after the goal. We've seen those awarded this year, which is always interesting. Score a goal, get a penalty afterwards because the puck went in first. That could happen. So you don't want that to. So I'm expecting his skate to move so that he can either move out of the way or stop. On this play, I'm watching his right skate as he's headed towards the net. I see his skate move either to create that deflecting surface or to stop his forward momentum, but I'm not seeing a distinctive kicking motion. I'm not seeing a windup. I'm not seeing a follow through. I'm not even convinced that his skate propelled the puck into the net. Did this actually provide energy? Did this do anything other than deflect the existing trajectory of the puck and let it bounce off and into the net? This was not distinct to me, Todd. I thought this was going to be a goal. Looked at it afterwards and said, well, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they have better angles in the situation room. And I still haven't seen one that convinces me that this was distinct enough to call no goal in the play.
This is my point as well, is that there is no kick. He's not trying to propel the puck into the net with his skate. It's like he's stopping, he's moving, the puck finds its way in. But this ain't no kick.
Right. And you're, like I said, you're allowed to have the puck deflect off of you. You're allowed to move your skate. You can position your skate. You can intentionally deflect it in. So on this play, I did not see anything that looked like a distinct kicking motion. So look, we've asked for better explanations in the past. We've asked for it from the on-ice officials. This would be a great example from the situation room to give us a little bit more. I mean, you can go back, and I have them up on the Scouting the Refs website on the article about Bedard's disallowed goal, that the NHL produced a kicking motion video to try to explain what is a distinct kicking motion. Look, I don't want to call anybody out, but if you go through that video and you look at this Bedard kick, I think you're going to be confused.
There you are. Yeah. Okay. I want to highlight a situation that's kind of one of the quirks in the rule book. It involved the Vancouver Canucks, and they're one of the, if not their best player, one of their best players, as Quinn Hughes found himself in the penalty box in a game against the Washington Capitals. There was a bit of a scuffle along the boards, and Hughes took a little bit of abuse and wound up collecting a 2-minute minor penalty. However, the way the other penalties fell, it stuck Quinn Hughes in the box for much longer than his 2-minute minor penalty and prevented him from being out on the ice during a 4-minute Canucks power play. How does this happen?
Look, things get weird when you have penalties that aren't on the clock. So when we look at offsetting penalties, The idea is to make it as simple as possible. We don't have every player's time up on the clock. So we have certain penalties that we refer to as time penalties. Those are the ones that you're looking at. If you're in the arena, that's the one that's up there. So when you have a mess like we had in this game, and you've got a whole bunch of guys going to the box, you've got a lot of penalties assessed at one moment, they're really going to cancel out as much as they can until they get to the penalties that will actually affect the strength of both teams on the ice. So those are the time penalties. Those are the ones that go up there. Everyone else sits in the box until their 2 minutes expires, but then they have to stay in the box, right? The penalty ends for a guy who's on the time penalty. We all know what happens. The door opens, the guy comes back out on the ice. We're at even strength. Simple. All of these offsetting penalties, all the ones that canceled out, result in the guys staying in the box. They have to stay in there their entire 2 minutes because their penalties offset each other. But once that time expires, they can't open the door because they didn't affect the strength on the ice. They come out of the box, you're going to have too many men on the ice. So they have to wait for a stoppage in play. The problem is it was just way too long for that stoppage in play. I'm amazed at the Canucks not considering like, hey, you know what? Do we want to just flip the puck out at center ice? Do we want to take a face? Do we want to do something here to draw a whistle so Hughes can come out? He's sitting there standing. I mean, he was off the ice for over 6 minutes just waiting to come back on because of how the non-clock penalty played out. So an unfortunate play for him, frustrating for everybody, but sometimes you just need to get that whistle.
It certainly would have helped the Vancouver Canucks, who could use a little bit of help in terms of the goal scoring at this point in time. So anyhow, it's just one of the weird quirks, and sometimes that's how it goes when there is no whistle. Let's take a look at the spicy game between the Bolts and the Bruins this past week. Only a couple seconds remaining. Tampa's Emil Lilleberg gets the stick up on Boston's Mark Kastelik. They drop the gloves. They fight. Kastelik lands very hard and look quite wobbly after. Lilleberg gets 5 for cross-checking, 5 for fighting, misconduct. Kastelik also a fighting major as well. And then they have to drop the puck to end the game. So afterwards, there's we'll call it a line scrum. It wasn't ferocious enough to be a line brawl. It was a line scrum. There's some additional penalties as well. That was a pretty nasty a high stick, cross check, whatever you want to call it, on Lilleberg.
Yeah, there's no way to have a cross check to the face that's nice. I don't know. Look, I don't want to cut the guy a break here because it still ended up being a cross check to the face. And we've seen suspensions happen for these in the past. I don't think he was going for the face. I don't think he was intending to do that. Like you said, it was getting a little spicy. It was getting a little rough at the end there. Kastelik's coming towards him, and he goes to deliver the cross check. It looks like Kastelik's getting his arms up at the same time. And if you watch the play, you'll see it deflects off of his shoulders or his upper arm, and that raises the stick up. Now, we've seen similar plays happen before. And it comes back to what you said earlier in the podcast, Todd. You're still responsible for your stick. So it's the right call. I absolutely think you get the major penalty for the cross check to the face. But does it rise to the level of supplemental discipline? I would have done a fine. But I don't think this is suspendable simply because it didn't look like he was trying to get him in the face. It looks like two guys, what we see all the time of cross checks, jabs, things like that after the whistle, between whistles, stuff like that. It just happens that it was an unfortunate bounce and caught Kastelik in the face. So I think it's the right call, but I can live with not seeing anything else happen here. Of course, you don't want a guy having a head injury or anything because of it. And Kastelik, between the fight, the cross check to the face, just had a real rough ending to that one.
Game did not end well for Mark Kastelik, absolutely. With the end of the World Junior Championships also comes the end of the Ref Cam, which returned during the broadcast, which provides tremendous views from the ice. You get to see the interaction with the officials and the players up close. The other great thing that they do is they allow another camera person on the ice prior to face-offs and stuff. You get some really cool close-ups and stuff. We can't have any of that, though, in the National Hockey League because, that provides great access and innovation. And, people might like that sort of thing.
People love that sort of thing, and the NHL knows it, and they've tried it before. And when they tried it, the cameras were big, the battery packs were clunky, the broadcast antennas, it was all really cumbersome. It's not anymore. And the IIHF guys have not complained about it. I think we could easily see this in the NHL. It was great to see the gold medal game, US-Finland. You had Mike Campbell and Christopher Holm working that one. And the bronze game was Andres Anson's Mike Langen. So to have them mic'd up with cameras to see what's going on the ice, I mean, it's amazing. Even if the NHL wanted to hold off and say, we're not going to do it live, we'll do it after the fact. We can do it, when we show highlights or when we put a package together about the game. But to use the clips that way, I could live with because it's such a great opportunity to see what's happening on the ice, to hear the guys interacting at ice level. Love that the IIHF does it. Really wish the National Hockey League would bring it back.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. You know what, though? Let's wrap up on this, happy, positive note. Let's send our congratulations out to Matt Rempe, who made it through a Rangers-Devils game without being ejected.
Hey, the Rangers are undefeated when Rempe gets ejected. So when he made it through the game, there's no telling how it would have turned out.
Good stuff, man. Way to work.
Get in the box. It's the Scouting the Refs podcast. Read more at scoutingtherefs.com. Follow Scouting the Refs on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Email the show at heyref@scoutingtherefs.com.
You're good, Michael.
Subscribe, share, and keep those sticks